Hello and welcome to the Week 13 Waiver Wire Show. Today, we'll be discussing the top waiver wire pickups at each position, including bid recommendations and deeper league targets. Stay tuned until the end where we answer your listener questions sent in via Twitter. Pat Freiermuth is an interesting guy to talk about because he was bad, like really bad, and hurt for so long. He likely got dropped in a ton of leagues. I think where he was still rostered was probably in mostly in leagues where people were just inactive. That's where he was still rostered. So you might still be able to get Pat Freiermuth back now, I think realistically. The question is, was this insane breakout? Pat Freiermuth led the entire slate, all players in receiving yards. Was this insane breakout a product of the Bengals defense, which has been atrocious and atrocious against tight ends? Or with Matt Canada gone, is Pat Freiermuth actually going to be featured now for the Steelers? Sam, where do you come in on the Freiermuth stuff this week?
Yeah, first of all, I'm just a lot more excited about the Steelers' offensive environment with Matt Canada gone. This is an insane stat. I believe I got this from JJ Zacharyson. The Steelers played 44 games under offensive coordinator Matt Canada and never eclipsed 400 yards in any of those 44 games. The first game after he gets fired, they immediately clear the 400-yard mark. I think they had close to 450 yards of offense last week. So that just goes to show you, I do think Matt Canada was a drag on this entire offense. You can see it in Kenny Pickett's passing charts. With Matt Canada, they were just throwing to the boundaries, making their wide receivers run really challenging routes on the outside. And the first week with Canada gone, they were throwing a lot more over the middle to Pat Freiermuth, to Deontay Johnson. So I just think this new offensive scheme is going to be a lot friendlier for the Steelers pass catchers. And Freiermuth might be a focal point of it down the stretch. So it's interesting with him. His usage still isn't all the way ramped up. He still only ran like 60% of routes or so this past week, but saw a massive target share, 11 targets for a 35% share. I think you have to be excited about Freiermuth going forward. I have my FAAB recommendation here at 20 to 40%. But if you're a team, like I have some teams that lost Mark Andrews and are struggling at tight end, if Freiermuth is out there, you might as well spend, the rest of your FAAB if that's your one weakness on your team, right? Like go get him. You're not going to find a tight end with more upside than Freiermuth on the waiver wire.
So comparing Freiermuth to like Bellinger and Durham Smythe and these dust balls, at least Freiermuth is good at football. At least he's an NFL legit football player who can score touchdowns. Obviously, I don't think Pat Freiermuth's target share from this past week will be sticky, but he will have a red zone role every week and a reasonable base role too. And there's some hope that the Matt Canada gone stuff, I think, makes this a bit sticky. So yeah, I'm willing to pile it in on Freiermuth if I need tight end at this point. Speaking of piling it in here, Sam, we don't have Zach Moss listed. I just want to let everyone know we're recording this around 4 p.m. Eastern on Monday. If Zach Moss is available in your league, as of now, it does not sound good on Jonathan Taylor's thumb. You should be spending, I think, 100% of your budget on Zach Moss if he's out there. Would you agree with that, Sam?
100%. Yeah, we've seen how much fantasy scoring is funneled to the running back position in Indianapolis. Go all in Moss. I don't know what you're waiting for if he's out there and you're not spending all your FAAB on him.
Okay. Speaking of the running back position, in last night's Chicago-Minnesota game, we got a change, which honestly I did not expect to see coming. Just talked with Silva about that a bunch. The team by team will be up later tonight. Roshan Johnson outsnapped Khalil Herbert 51-15 in this game against the Vikings. Now, Deontay Foreman was out, and they have a bye this week, so it's a bit hairy on Roshan Johnson. But what do you think about prioritizing him on waivers at this point?
Yeah, this one is a little complicated. Yeah, number one, I did not see this coming. And honestly, I don't really get it. Like Khalil Herbert, to me, from the eye test, just looks a lot better than Roshan Johnson. He's a lot more explosive. And the advanced stats back that up on a per-touch basis. Herbert's more effective. He grades out better in terms of PFF rushing grades, receiving grades, even pass blocking grades, which is supposed to be Roshan Johnson's specialty, allegedly. I don't see a special player when I watch Roshan Johnson on tape, but I mean, you can't ignore the fact that he had a massive snap share, massive touch share in this game over Herbert. The two sort of confounding factors here are, one, the Bears are on bye in week 13, so you're not going to be able to get to use him next week. Then Foreman, I think, should be back on week 14. He hasn't been placed on IR or anything like that. So I think Foreman will come back and make this a 3-man rotation. And we're talking about the Chicago Bears here. So yeah, in a week, waiver wire week, I do have Roshan Johnson as my top ad. But man, I'm not overly excited, to be honest. I wouldn't, if you do have some FAAB left, he's not a guy that I'm going all in on. I probably want to save my FAAB and maybe wait another week versus going in on Roshan.
Okay. Yeah. I think that the bull case on Roshan is that the Bears want to see if he can be their feature back. And so why not give him a long leash the rest of the way and let him play in a feature role? That's probably what I would do if I was running the Bears. I'm not trying to win games. I'm trying to see if I have the pieces that can win games when I have a better team around them. So I don't know. I think maybe you could get a longer look at Roshan, but we'll be looking this week for exactly why or what happened with the Roshan Khalil Herbert split here. The buy stuff is the worst, though. Like picking up a guy to be on a buy is not great.
Yeah.
Other guys that we think should be rostered at this point. I know we've talked about it a lot the last couple of weeks. You see it with the Zach Moss thing. Hopefully you guys had Zach Moss. Anyone one injury away from a very good role at the running back position, or really any position at this point, should be owned. So we have Rico Dowdle on here. We have Elijah Mitchell on here. We have Latavius Murray on here. I would consider maybe some other guys like Kenny Gainwell should be someone that is owned as one injury away. And a new member of the list is Dearness Johnson, who has iced Tank Bigsby. Now, Travis Etienne left that game this past week with a chest issue, was able to come back, but it looked like Dearness was going to be the guy, not Tank Bigsby, if Etienne continued to miss time. So yeah, I would throw Dearness into this list with all of the one injury away running backs here. Sam, any more comments on running back stuff?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. I'll just add on Dearness Johnson. I think we got, we kind of suspected that he was already ahead of Bigsby, but we got a very clear answer in week 12. When Travis Etienne missed time this past week, Dearness Johnson played 43% of snaps compared to 3% of snaps for Tank Bigsby. So it's over for Tank Bigsby in terms of this running back competition. I do think there's some chance the Jaguars, let me see. The Jaguars are playing Cincinnati this week on Monday night. I think there's a small chance that if Etienne's somewhat banged up, they're playing the Jake Browning Bengals. Maybe you get Dearness Johnson in sort of a spot start for 1 week if they want to rest Etienne. So if you're desperate at running back and you want a chance at maybe something better than just a handcuff, I think Dearness Johnson makes sense to add this week.
Okay, wide receiver this week, Jameson Williams, we talked about a ton on here. His role continues to be good. He clearly has the wide receiver 3 role, continues to struggle to earn targets, but when he hits, it's going to hit in a massive way. I mean, where he's getting targeted, if he hits, it's going to be massive. It's just, I don't trust him to earn targets on a week-to-week basis, but he's still very much in play. Jalen Hyatt broke out, even though Darius Slayton was banged up this past week. And then you obviously get the Bateman and Shakir stuff that we've talked about for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, any other wide receiver thoughts here on the top 10, Sam?
No, nothing outside of what you mentioned, really. I think, with Jameson Williams, I'll quickly add it's the same story. Like, he does make a splash play usually every week, but he's also seeing like 2 or 3 targets every week. And you look at some of the advanced stats with him, he's just not earning targets at a high rate. So not to be, if you're looking at guys off the waiver wire, it's good to see the upside in players and not just look at their negatives. I do think Jameson Williams would be my favorite amongst this group because there's a chance he puts it all together. They could bench Josh Reynolds down the stretch and see what they have in Jameson, especially if they're losing games or, they lost this past week to Green Bay. They almost lost to Chicago. Maybe the Lions are at a point where they say, hey, we got to make a change on offense and get Jameson on the field more. So he's my favorite amongst that group.
Yeah. Only thing I'd add on Jalen Hyatt is Giants are on a bye this week upcoming, but they don't care. Like, Dable doesn't care. They're going high pass rate, even with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. And so if they shut down Slayton, if they shut down Sterling Shepard, if they shut down all these guys, all these dusty veterans after the bye and just say, hey, we're going to go youth movement, Jalen Hyatt, I think, has some upside for people in deeper leagues. But yeah, you're going to have to deal with a bye and some wish casting on roll. All right.
Yep.
Let's go to some best of rest here. One spot I wanted to mention was Saints. Saints could be without Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, and Chris Olave this week. I mean, that is a lot of guys to miss. I don't even know what they're going to do. I do know that I think they have the most confidence in A.T. Perry. I think we'll see a lot of Kamara. I think we'll see a lot of Taysom Hill. But to me, A.T. Perry is the one they like best. They're home against the Lions this week. I also think they could use Juwan Johnson more in a wide receiver role. And so if you're desperate at tight end, Juwan Johnson we have as second behind Freiermuth, and then A.T. Perry, I think, is at least in the mix with the rest of these dust balls at wide receiver. They just have no options. So yeah, any thoughts on Saint stuff this week, Sam? And then anyone else you want to mention from best of rest?
Yeah, if I was in like a desperation spot for like a flex play, say, I would go Juwan Johnson over A.T. Perry. I think, yeah, like you mentioned, I think Juwan Johnson's going to be running a ton of slot wide receiver routes. Essentially, they'll have Foster Moreau in there as an inline tight end, eating up some of the blocking snaps. And I'm guessing they'll just play Johnson essentially at wide receiver. He had 7 targets last week, actually led the Saints in routes run. A.T. Perry was second in routes run with all the banged up players, but only saw 2 targets. So yeah, I think both are interesting sort of desperation ads there. Other thing I'll mention in sort of the lines of desperation wide receiver ads, Jalen Guyton, I don't think he's very good, but he's going to be on the field in basically a full-time role for the Chargers. I don't know exactly what the deal is with Quentin Johnson. There was some injury concern. Staley also effectively said he just got benched.
Don't let him off the hook. He got benched. Don't let him off the hook. He got benched.
Yeah. So he got benched. Even if he doesn't get benched, like Guyton runs a ton of routes out there. So I don't think it's the worst idea if you're in a desperation spot just to start a guy who's going to be running 90+% of the routes for Justin Herbert. But yeah, that's probably it on the wide receivers. Maybe we can talk. I know a lot of people asked about like defenses and quarterbacks, but we can maybe get to that later.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, I thought that people who drafted Mark Andrews could have, if you have a deep enough bench, roster Isaiah Likely all year, the rare tight end handcuff. We've talked on here about Cedric Wilson. If I had Tyreek, if I had Waddle, and I had super deep bench with room on it, you could roster Cedric Wilson. The week 15, 16, 17 schedule is absolutely brutal, but I do think Cedric Wilson is the direct backup to both those guys. We have him there on the list. But yeah, that's about it for me. And the one injury away running backs, Royce Freeman, I would add to the list we have here. Pirine, we have McKinnon, we have Gainwell. Yeah, all those guys.
Yeah.
Let's go to, we got a question about defensive streamers for this week. There are a lot of defensive streamers available on the wire this week. Unfortunately, we don't get to go stream against DeVito again because the Patriots were a printing press last week. This DeVito guy takes sacks at a rate I've never seen before in my entire life. They're on a bye, though. So we have Jacksonville against Jake Browning. We have Atlanta against Tim Boyle. We have Tampa Bay against Bryce Young. We have Chargers against Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. And we have the Colts against Will Levis. All strike me as pretty good options. I'm pretty tempted by the Falcons here, but Jacksonville at home against Jake Browning is also pretty interesting. Any favorite streaming defenses this week, Sam?
Yeah, I think Jacksonville is my favorite just because I think they're going to put up a lot of points against Cincinnati and force Jake Browning to throw. Atlanta against the Jets is also good, but I can see a world where the Jets just give up and run the ball 100 times, even if they're getting killed by Atlanta. But yeah, man, this is probably the best, one of the best weeks for defense streamers. Going against Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones has been printing money the past 3 weeks, and the Chargers are basically unowned. Going up against Bryce Young has also been printing money, and the Bucs are basically unowned as a defense. So pick your poison this week. I have them ranked in order in my article, so you can check it out. But you can't really go wrong with either of these top 5 options here.
Agreed. For people asking about stashes for playoff defenses, we're going to go over that on the rest of season top 150 show tomorrow with myself, Mark, and Jack. That will be the last rest of season top 150 show of the season, but we'll be covering a lot of stashes for very good people who have very good teams right now. All right. Drop list is what it is. I think at this point, we can go ahead and move to deeper league targets. The one that we're hoping for on our main event team, Sam, where we lost Mark Andrews, is the Noah Gray thing to hit. I think the only way it hits, of course, is with a Travis Kelce injury, but that would be another handcuff, counterintuitive handcuff that I think is worth mentioning is Noah Gray. But yeah, it's going to be real thin here along the way in deep leagues right now. Anyone you want to highlight on this list?
Yeah, a couple, maybe two different categories. In terms of handcuffs, handcuff wide receivers, which we don't talk about a lot, but I think is relevant in deep leagues. I'll throw out Julio Jones on the Eagles. His role has actually increased pretty strongly the past couple weeks. He's up to like 75% routes run. Obviously, he's not seeing a lot of targets, but if Devonta Smith or AJ Brown were to get hurt, he would be by default, having to get maybe 5-6 targets a game. So if you roster one of those players, he's maybe a somewhat interesting handcuff to consider. Then Jalen Tolbert on Dallas is the other one. He's kind of the wide receiver 4 in the rotation, splitting time with Michael Gallup. If Gallup, Cooks, or CD were to get hurt, I think it'd be forced into something closer to a full-time role in Dallas. And we know Dak is just playing out of his mind right now. So he is vaguely interesting. And then in terms of more like near-term desperation starters at wide receiver, Greg Dortch, we've talked about this before, but if Michael Wilson is out for Arizona, you can put Greg Dortch in your flex, and that's an okay start, I think. And then Demario Douglas got banged up for the Patriots. That pushes both Devontae Parker and Juju into starting wide receiver roles. It's really gross, but talking desperation plays here, I think you could do worse than playing Devontae Parker in a deep league if you have to.
Yep. Yeah, I like that on Dortch. I mean, Dortch scored a touchdown to save his day, but he played a ton in this past game. I'm not sure what's going on with Michael Wilson right now. All right. Let's get to some of your questions here before we get out of here. Rob says, best week 13 streamer quarterback to add. Jordan Love against Kansas City, Russ Wilson at Houston, or someone else. Man, I thought Jordan Love's been playing awesome the last few weeks. The problem is this Kansas City defense has been lights out against opposing passing games all year. Russ at Houston is interesting. That could be a really high scoring game. Any week 13 quarterback streamers on your mind here for Rob?
Yeah, I think Russ is my favorite, which Rob identified. Houston's been bottom 8 defense in terms of EPA per play. I think they'll probably put up some points on Denver. That game could have a high total, and Russ could be forced to throw a little bit more than we've seen. I think I'm staying away from Jordan Love, even though he has looked really good. It's been against weaker defenses, and man, the Chiefs defense, they make Jalen Hurts look bad, last Monday night. I am staying away from that. I think other options I consider over Jordan Love would be Baker Mayfield against Carolina. Carolina's defense has really been struggling. Kenny Pickett without Matt Canada is playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals' pass defense has been terrible, especially in recent weeks. So those are I'd probably go Russ, Baker, Pickett, and then Love might be 4th on my list there.
While we're talking about emergency starts, he's probably not available on your wire, but if he is, given the situation the Saints are in, I could see a ton of Taysom Hill touches in this game. Hopefully he's available at tight end for you and not quarterback. But I could see a game plan around Taysom Hill given all their injuries right now.
Agreed. He would be my second on this list of tight ends we have here. I think he's owned in 50% plus of leagues. He would be second to Freiermuth for me for tight ends that might be available for sure.
Tuffy McShites, very nice name. Tuffy McShites says, which rookie wide receiver is poised for a late season league winning smash? The narrative out there, Sam, I think is that every year there's a rookie wide receiver that comes on late and smashes. I think in the aggregate, on average, typically there's some rookie wide receivers that do much better at the end of the year and are part of league winning teams. I'm not sure I necessarily see it this year. You could maybe make a case for Jalen Hyatt, but that's kind of thin. You can maybe get a case for Jack Smith and Jigba. Maybe they sit down or back off DK Metcalf Lockett if they're out of the playoffs. They're really struggling right now. But man, I don't think that there has to be one this year. Any rookie wide receivers on your mind for a late season smash?
Yeah, the one that actually came to mind here for me is Rashee Rice. after his breakout game last week. You know, the issue with Rashee Rice has just been we've seen his routes trend up, and right when you think he's about to get a full-time role, you know, McCole Hardman comes back from injury and somehow takes, 30% of routes away from Rashee Rice. So this week, he did see season highs, targets, catches, yards, routes, snaps, like everything. I am a little bit worried that was more due to McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney missing time than the Chiefs really being ready to trust Rice with a full-time role. But yeah, if anyone's going to do it, I mean, he has the perfect situation. He's surrounded by just absolute nobodies at wide receiver in Kansas City. Obviously, Travis Kelce's there. But if one of these guys is going to carve out like a consistent 20-25% target share on a good offense, I think Rashee Rice fits the bill over the other rookie wide receivers for me.
Breaking news into the show, Sam. Breaking news. Jonathan Taylor will undergo thumb surgery. He's hopeful to return in 2 to 3 weeks. So
man.
at least 2 to 3 weeks on Jonathan Taylor, it sounds like at this point. When guys come back from these thumb surgeries, sometimes maybe he won't have like a big pass game role, but he needs to be able to protect himself as a blocker. He needs to be able to catch the football to get back. So thumb surgery does not sound great. I'd still be blowing my load on Zach Moss, I think, here, even at a 2 to 3 week timetable. Any reaction to the 2 to 3 week timetable and how it affects how you handle waivers at all?
I think, still all in on Moss. I mean, we only have 4 or 5 weeks left in the fantasy season. So 2 to 3 weeks. I'm still going all in on Moss. I'll also throw out like deeper leagues. We're talking about guys like Jalen Tolbert and Julio Jones in the show. I'll throw Trey Sermon into the deeper league discussion. I think he's one Zach Moss injury away now from being the starter for a couple weeks. So it's ugly, but he should probably be on this list of one injury away guys.
Okay. Anthony says, when should I fade off of high value running back handcuffs and transition over to dome kickers and matchup defenses as bench stashes for playoff likely teams? So basically what Anthony's asking is, he's saying he doesn't have enough room for both one injury away running backs and defense kickers for the playoffs. My take is I would prioritize those first, running back handcuffs, because it's important that you have it, but it's also important that whoever you're going to play doesn't get these guys if they're going to get them into a really good role. 2, I would say defenses, because there aren't that many of them every week and they can separate. I wouldn't be that worried about kickers. If I have to pick up a kicker the week of the playoffs, I think I'm okay with that. That's how I would order it. I would still stick with running back handcuffs for now. Personally, Sam, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think I have the same order. The one thing I'll add is I really like to map out my defenses for the playoff weeks by looking at the schedules. So I don't have a great example in mind, but say you have a defense that has an awesome matchup for weeks 15 and 17, but is playing the Eagles in week 16. This is a hypothetical example, right? Make sure, you have a second defense, if you are holding a second defense, that has a really good week 16 matchup, so you can kind of play those defenses off of each other. So I think I am at the point of the season where I am looking towards the fantasy playoffs, and I want to make sure I have a defense that has a good matchup and or is just a great defense for every single week. And I probably be like, say, Kansas City Chiefs defense, they have an awesome playoff schedule. I'd probably rather roster like the highest end handcuffs over them, like Rico Dowdle, Elijah Mitchell, maybe. But once I get down to like Jerick McKinnon, Samaje Perine, I'm probably choosing the Chiefs defense as my second defense over the likes of those guys, if that makes sense.
Yep, I think that's totally fair. Last question we're going to do today comes from MLB PMAU. He says, I clinched the playoffs, but my running backs are Eckler, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Jerome Ford, and Ty Chandler. Should I drop Ty Chandler for any of these? Aaron Jones, Roshan Johnson, Rico Dowdle. So usage last night for Ty Chandler was bad. I thought this was a spot where they could get Chandler at least even with Madison. They declined to do so. Madison actually plays a pretty good game. Now they go on a bye. I have no problem whatsoever dropping Ty Chandler as they go into the bye here. Aaron Jones, MCL issue. They said 1 to 3 weeks. It's been 1 week so far. I feel like I would rather have Aaron Jones at this point than any of these guys, even though he's hurt. But if you need immediate help, it doesn't sound like you do, but if you did need immediate help, Roshan would be the choice there, I think. Any thoughts on this question, Sam?
Yeah, I think I'd have it like ordered in the way MLB Pamau wrote the question. Aaron Jones, then Roshan, then Dowdle, and I prefer all three of them to Ty Chandler. Yeah, Aaron Jones, I feel like shouldn't be on waivers, even though he's banged up. Like, there's a chance we get to week 16, 17, and you're really happy you have Aaron Jones, or at least you're blocking one of your opponents. Sounds like you're stacked at running back, but you can block one of your opponents from having Aaron Jones in the playoffs. That seems like a smart move.
Yeah, if you have Eckler, I'd probably want to have Josh Kelly. This ankle, like, I don't think Austin Eckler ever got healthy from his early season ankle injury. And at some point, he might just shut it down. I mean, they're 4-7 now. So, yeah, Eckler teams for the playoffs, make sure I at least have Kelly, if not some other plans.
Yeah. Did you see he was running like 13 miles per hour out on the field or something? I don't know. Adam, can you run 13 miles per hour?
I think so.
Okay. Let's get you into running back on the Chargers. Let's see what happens.
All right. That is going to do it for this week 13 look at the waiver wire. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Appreciate you all being here. Be sure to tune in to the final rest of season top 150 show of the season. Tomorrow we'll go over more stashes for the playoffs. For Sam, for producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.